So can you ask to join? Mm. Oh, I see.
It's different from what I remember. Okay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Cool. Now, oh, how do I change this? Hello. Oh, cool. Hi, Andrew. Hello, people. That is really cool. Hi, Alex. So, hello, everybody. Hello, people, whoever is in there. We have here today Alex Van Ham from Freebird Media. I already made my little poster. So we have some announcements, and we were trying to do a live video on our YouTube channel to talk about our collab and interview each other about all free speech and about our channels, each other. And unhappily did not work, so we're gonna maybe do a little convo here. Alex, what do you think? Spend a few minutes here and then we can jump into a Skype and make a proper video for
Yeah.
everybody to upload later. Are you mute? I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me at all?
Oh, okay. Now I hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. I'll fix that. Yeah, I'm very sorry. There's a technical problem on my end, so then I apologize for that. But I'm glad that I can finally speak to you. I've been a fan of the channel for months, so thanks for time.
So I just don't hear you so well, so I'm gonna probably use some headphones. It's me.
Need better lighting. Uh,
And using the phone is not that easy.
Hey, for anybody watching this live, feel free to check out my YouTube channel as well. It's Freebird Media Canada. There's a whole bunch of content on there and Antifa footage and stuff like that. So, hey, Mr. Cope 001, good to see you. Check out Freebird Media on YouTube if you are bored.
That's right. That's right. Go check out Freebird Media Canada. Alex has just a amazing channel talking about free speech and interviewing people, and and we are talking about doing some work together. You know, Alex has a few series. He invited me to Freebird Media, and going to be producing more interviews related to all these subjects. And I don't know if you guys have anybody that you guys want to see us talking to. Yeah, we are probably not completely following demands, but we are open to suggestions. And the interesting thing is that Alex, in fact, is a journalist, different from me, that I'm just a curious person trying to talk to people that I admire. Uh, Alex, can you tell us just a little bit about how the, you know, from being a journalist, what actually made you become an independent journalist or just decide to work on YouTube by yourself?
Okay, yeah, sure. I graduated from Sheridan College. It's a university now, but when I was there, it was a technical college, and I went to grad school there for journalism. And when I was there, I knew that I didn't really want to work in mainstream media. It just didn't really interest me. I always went there because I was interested in eventually doing freelance work. But then after that, I pursued freelance work right out the gate, and it was hard to find stuff that paid well that I was also interested in writing. And I had some run-ins with editors at Vice, and some which didn't go well. I feel like they ripped me off, and I had a bunch of other negative experiences in the industry. So that made me stop kind of pursuing freelance work for a while, and I was just doing other things not related to journalism at all. Jordan Peterson rally, just because my friend invited me to it, and I saw Jordan Peterson there, and I was standing beside him in a video that went viral on YouTube where he's being confronted by SJWs and they're having a argument and stuff. And after that event, I was talking with a bunch of students that were there. A lot of energy around like free speech and stuff, and I've always been a big advocate for defending free speech. You know, I think it's an important mechanism in society and stuff, and I've always liked reading like stuff. I started like a platform that's based around the culture war at the time, which was Bill C-16 was coming up, which was a pronouns bill, and that was something that people were really riled up about. So there were a lot of protests going on at Nathan Phillips Square here in Toronto and stuff, and so I would go and document all this and put it on my platform, and it started to get pretty big for a while. Had a lot of really interesting footage of like Antifa and stuff like that at Nathan Phillips Square. That went, started to get a lot of good views. So we were doing pretty well for a while, and then I collaborated with some people like Faith Goldie and some other media people that got us into. Then after a while, I kind of got disenchanted with the whole thing, and I haven't done that much work on it lately because I've been busy with my day job. And there aren't a lot of YouTube channels. There's only like 3 YouTube channels that I like watching these days. Your channel, Revenge of the Sis, and Specs and Hammer. So there's only a few that I even like. And then when you and I started to network, I was just very happy to be able to talk to you. And your channel is great. So the fact that we can now collaborate and do some meaningful journalism together, I think is really awesome. I'm excited.
That's right. I was really excited because I have reached out to more than 6 months ago, I believe, and then you told me, busy, and then bad internet and lockdown, and you're still always busy, like you mentioned about your day job, and I was just so excited when you reached out me to collab, to do some interview in the other way, to talk to me as interviewing me and to invite me to be part of the Freebird Media. I do think we are very resonant in the free speech and trying to seek for truth and acknowledge our biases and try to follow more data and reason and not be emotional toward this, all the reality, because I think that is what causes this impression of that we are to 2020 worse than whatever period before. That is actually not true, but in some way it is true that people are very sensitive in that way and have been responded to reality in very infantile way or very emotional way. And I think that is very much what we talk about, and we should avoid. We are going through another moment that it's very emotional, and people are being driven much more by emotions than by reason. And I think it's important to still talk about all the fake news. It's interesting that we have here someone hanging out, Marco, Andrew. It's a close friend of mine online. We don't know each other personally, but he follows me for a long time, and we always share memes and news and stuff. And recently, I shared with you in a not recorded video. We had the first meeting talking about business, and I told you about someone that brought me some news from Black Lives Matter, and it was him. And it's a very interesting situation that we're going through that is still so current from 2016 still today. The mainstream media narrative, the fake news, the Antifa, Black Lives Matter movements that supposed to defend minorities, but they are very driven by a lot of myths, a lot of misinformation, a lot of what I would say that is definitely what the definition of fake news because it's definitely built on a way to make people emotional and cause division. Uh, I don't know why any person in the planet, it doesn't matter about power, money, or whatever, would try to divide the people in the United States in this way. So maybe there is some type of foreigner collusion to try to divide people in the United States and to cause some civil war, some racial war, as what is happening right now with the racist Black Lives Matter and stuff. So just to give people that watching what happened, he sent me a video that was you fell for it. So he sent me a video from Black Lives Matter posts on Instagram. Trump a video of a few seconds of Trump saying, I can't breathe, with a tone of mockery. And my first reaction was to click and check the source and not believe the first, just because I saw it was Black Lives Matter and it was a short video, was cut. So I was like, it was cut out of context, what they are actually talking about. I clicked on, there was the hashtag Eric Garner and George Floyd. And I was like, really? Was he talking about them in this tone? And why would he do that? And, if he was that, why is not the video completed? So what did they cut off? What was the context? And we went through why I would not believe the Black Lives Matter at first, because I believe they have a narrative, they have a agenda, and they are very biased, and they pick and choose on news to uh, parade their narrative, their agenda. So later, I found the original video that was actually Trump talking months ago about Bloomberg making fun of him, like joking on a conversation, on responding on a debate, political debate, and then I could send him back the whole video, the original, and ask like, so would be this the whole context and has nothing to do, but they want to inflammate people. So whoever did that, maybe they were not the original one that made that, they were being fooled to, but someone that cut that video and put that hashtag definitely wanted us to believe, they actually put all the subtitle what they want us to believe, and maybe is a little bit more disingenuous and bad intentional, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. The thing is, a lot of really well-intentioned people and a lot of good-hearted people are unfortunately being beat by Black Lives Matter, which essentially fundamentally is a giant grifting organization. They don't fundamentally actually care about racial justice. The whole thing is a scam at a fundamental level. It's unfortunate because they appropriate a lot of right, and they get funding from um, and there's different chapters, right? Like Black Lives Matter Toronto is specifically bad for a bunch of stuff, but they're their own specific faction here in Toronto. And yeah, they definitely produce a lot of propaganda. So unfortunately, we live in an age of fake news. We live in an age of propaganda everywhere. The media just selectively cherry picks the data them without context to form narratives, right? So that's a huge problem, and that's why I think that kind of rational and kind of look specific and kind of with an open mind is really important. So I think a lot of YouTubers are, especially with like right-wing media or something like that, a lot of them are really egotistical and they're on YouTube for personal stuff like that. I'm not really mad at the stuff that actually looks the truth, kind of a cliche, but yeah, there's a lot of truth in a lot of the Black Lives Matter propaganda, but overall, it's still, a lot of bias, probably a lot of lies, too, a lot of and it suckers in a lot of, good-hearted people. So that's unfortunate. I, I applaud you for calling out the but not so doesn't get to the point to talk about this or to go against. So I respect you. Aren't some but all this crap on social media about it and without really time to look into it. Also, I think unfortunately my phone might die soon. If it does, before it does, I want to recommend anyone watching this, check out Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell is this awesome black YouTube stuff, or read his books, because that guy's super big. That's all I wanted to say.
That's right. Yeah, I definitely follow him. Love the memes that are all over the internet talking about systematic racism. Uh, Larry Elder is another perfect person to follow and check. Very backed up by data and statistics. I sent Andrew many names. Other guys that have been Brandon Tenton that have been in Dave Rubin, and he speaks like a short 10 minutes video talking specific about the case on George Floyd. I think it is important to say how it is being used and played by a lot of people in the idea of the virtual cinema. It's something Devon Trace on Atheism and Stuff love to talk about the virtual, and I just saw something super new, and it's gonna be stirring a lot on Twitter very soon. So we're gonna be ahead of the time. It's the new Dave Chappelle
Oh yeah,
special.
watch that.
Did you
Definitely.
watch? It's amazing because I was actually just watching my husband playing video game after we watched that, and we were so disappointed. He was so disappointed. He was like, I had so much respect by Dave Chappelle until this, and after he was a few minutes playing, I just gave a little yell here in the middle of the living room and said like, but Stick Stones is still good. Stick and Stones is still good, guys. Don't worry. This new one, it's ah, nauseating. It's not funny. It's full of bias. It's full of the Black Lives Matter propaganda. Uh, I can't wait for Devon to make his video talking about it because they use Dylan Roof, so he will totally like destroy on something like that. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like
I just checked online now. I was gonna recommend this YouTube channel with libertarian black guy called That Guy T. He used to have a lot of great videos breaking down Black Lives Matter. I know he's not on YouTube anymore. I bet he got completely banned because I don't. I was gonna recommend him, and now I searched for him. He's not there anymore. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, that's the way it usually goes. Um, Yeah, what I need to take, I have a day job managing a restaurant, so I'm really busy these days. But I need a time to sit down and actually do a lot of research, like look at statistics on crime and stuff, which is harder than you think. Actually,
oh, you're kidding.
and like comparing like racial crime, and a lot of stuff that's literally just not available. It's a lot harder than you think to find like a lot of um, statistics on racial crime. It's a time-consuming ordeal.
Yeah, in our show together, we can present more data and have Ned to help a little bit more as a director of producing this type of, at least for us to show, uh, because sometimes we don't have everything on top of our head. But I have mentioned on the discussion about the George Floyd conversation with other people about how they talk about systematic racism. And if we actually go through the data, we would end up finding out that this system is being racist against whites. Because the last case, similar to George Floyd, that nobody talked about, and the victim was white, and nobody even claimed police brutality, nobody was charged. Uh, just because the victim was white. And I would say that could be a racism against whites because we did have a lot of response from media, from own police, from the legal system to fire and punish everybody involved into George Floyd case. And we still have all this emotional response of the reaction of the riots on the street that are not justified in any way and cause so much more innocent death than the original, than the first case.
Of course, yeah, and this is why I was talking about statistics before, because all this rage and this outrage that a lot of these rioters feel it's not justified. So the media has manipulated their perception of things. Because if there was a fair breakdown of the stats, you'd see that there's this notion of systemic racism. I don't really believe that it truly exists. There are no laws that discriminating against black people on the books. You know, if anything, there are affirmative action laws in their favor. But this word systemic, I don't think most of the people that use it know what it really means. There's no legal system holding them back. So maybe they could argue for a social system, but I don't even see that. So I think there's also a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding about the slave trade and things that I don't even think are relevant today anyway. But if you get into the statistics, you'll find out, in the United States, I believe nationally, although this is the thing, I don't have these statistics off the top of my head. That's why I said I need these. But I've been seeing a lot of stuff in articles I'm reading, but I read a lot of like media that's right wing, left wing. So I'm not 100% sure on the stats, but I know that I know the general range of things. So in America, like for example, a police officer is approximately 18.5 times more likely to be shot by a black suspect than an unarmed black male is by a police officer. So if you compare this with white statistics, in many states like Washington, more likely to white suspects than black, armed or unarmed. How much political fallout comes from, what also notably talks about the fact that 9% black homicides are committed by other black people. So if black lives do, why they still, then this fact the black on white crime rate is like 9% rate white on black. And, a lot of other facts, get more context on things. That's why I'm saying that context is super relevant. The media does a really bad job of, truth. So I think we need more objective media that just looks to try to present reality as it is, rather than form narratives just for selling corporate products or whatever, or other motivations I won't get into. But the point is, we definitely need a more rational, critical look at the statistics rather than media that would have to
I think I'm having some trouble with your audio. You're cutting almost every sentence in the end, or going low enough so I cannot hear you.
How is it now? Is it any better?
Yeah, sounds better. Yeah.
Is it better? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying that we need a more rational look at the statistics objectively to see if some of these narratives actually hold up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think the only way to look at the statistics like that is to not be emotional, because every time you take that and you see police brutality, or you see the death, like you mentioned, death of the black community in their young age, is like it's unproportional. Yeah, but who are the perpetrators? That it's so emotional the way that they sometimes face those data, that they cannot go through it all. So if you just stop on that first data, that's like, yeah, young black people are dying more than other races, and you feel just emotionally think that this racism coming from the system, and just want to go outside and do reparations in some, by any means necessary, you're not going to be able to find out that actually who is killing more young black people or young black people. And it should not be called as racism just to be able to analyze that data and address a problem that definitely is a problem in the black community that needs to be addressed. We need to try to fix. We apparently we are trying to fix, but we are not using the proper methods.
Yeah, absolutely. And going one step further than that, I think it's a lot easier said than done to unemotional perspective when you're talking about this stuff. Human beings are just tribal creatures by nature, um, and the media, you know, creating narratives that most people look at the media, most normal people, and it's just they see it as a source of authority, and they hear the same narratives repeated over and over again, so they don't really question them, and so they have this false perception of what's up, right? And then, ethnocentrism is a reality for human beings. It's built into most people, and most people are emotional, and they don't realize how difficult it is to be objective about things. And the media preys on very primal mechanisms, the human psyche when they're dealing with propaganda and how they manipulate people and stuff. So I understand why so many people get emotional about these issues if they're pretty inflammatory issues, and so um, having that unbiased conversation is way easier said than done. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Crucial, and again, that's why I'm excited to be working with you going forward. Hopefully, producing some really good interviews and having some really good um,
Yeah, there is a lot of people to talk about this. I actually saw one of your conversations uh, talking about immigration and talking about race. And every time I think someone tried to approach those subjects, IQ, race, immigration, it's easy here nowadays to just call people's name and try to not talk about that, say, oh, you're just racist, instead of actually address the problem. So I like that Andrew here sent me a message asking, like, what is the true, the real question is, who is behind all of this? And that is an interesting question, because one thing that we actually trying to debate and debunk is that there is some type of a group of people that dictate or control some type of systematic racism. Is exactly what you're talking against, that there is no group of people that set up rules that make whites or Jewish or Asian people succeed better than others. What we have are cultural tendencies, and maybe those tendencies culturally by nations and groups of ethnic groups make what to a lot of people. I like watching Stefan Molyneux, that is another controversial public figure, talking about this, because I think the understanding of those differences, they are not racist. It's not a type of racism to recognize, the empiricism that Stefan Molyneux likes to point out. I think it's more, we see these communities, and nobody talks about this because everybody just likes nowadays to talk about racism and be very racist toward whites when they are not the superior race. They would not be the superior race. It would be a very interesting conversation to talk about. Have you all not realized that the Jewish people are doing much better? Indian people, even in Western societies here in Canada, they are doing much better. So there's nothing related to color. It has to do with individual choices. And we have some communities that generally their individuals seem to do better than others. So we can actually bring to Asians and talk. I like to compare Asians to even try to take that black-white conversation when I talk to Brazilians and say, look at Japanese people. They got bombed. They got destroyed. They did not need anybody to go there and help them to, like, kind of got the help from the United States for sure, but they managed to take just what they needed and not necessarily be colonized completely. They still keep a lot of traditions, and they reconstructed it much better and did much better. Why do we still trying to help Africa forever and they don't seem to succeed? Is that being racist to talk about that? Is that being racist to point out that these people don't seem to be doing individual good choices, and it seems to be cultural because the entire community in general, when you talk about the entire community, we talk about majorities, we talk about the average majority. So why is this happening? And I think there is a lot of people talking serious about those problems. Like Dave Chappelle said bad, terrible things about her. Candace Owens is talking about a lot of the issue that is very relatable to the community. And she is talking, oh, she's not an inside speaker because she did not live a poor life. No, she is talking about a problem that we see repeating. We see that in poor communities in Brazil, and we see that it's more socio-economic than even racial when you actually have poverty and ignorance. So I think it's a lot of entangled conversation that it's very sensitive. Like a lot of people are sensitive to it nowadays, but it should definitely be addressed to talk about how uh, the police brutality is towards anybody that doesn't follow the police rules, that is respect the police. It's an authority, and when you don't respect, when you don't have authority at home, you might not respect any authority. That's why they have problems in schools. That's why they have problems with police. Why not address the problem the way that it should be being taught? So my daughter, I expect she doesn't get involved with police, but she's 3 years old and she knows. I played the game with her saying, okay, hands in the air is what the police says. And what you do, and she, whenever she hears hands in the air, she actually puts her little hands in the air. So the idea that black people are going to actually teach their kids that police want to kill them, it's, for me, it's frightening. It's ridiculous. It's scary because, of course, if you put filters on kids, on people's eyes, that they are being mistreated because of their gender, because of their color, because of their social or economic position, they will feel whatever happens in life, because nobody is free from having disappointments, to be mistreated, to have judgment, to have difficulties in life. But when I expect that those things are going to be answered by, oh, because my vagina, literally saying, like, okay, I could, any difficulty I went through my life, I could say like, oh, it's because I'm mixed race. Oh, it's because I'm a woman. Oh, I could play the victim card, but that is not a proper way to live life. And it's sad that people actually are teaching our kids those things. You know, like, for example, I would say my daughter, mixed race, she would say no to any kids, like, I don't want to play with you. Or some kid comes and try to play with her. And then now, if she says that to a black kid, the black kid will think, oh, she doesn't want to play with me because I'm black. No, that's not true. She would do that to another kid. But now those kids that are being indoctrinated to believe they are being attacked by racist, these people are going to have terrible lives. And we are going to have terrible lives around them too.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I agree with you. You touched on like 10 different points I could respond to there. Last developed, people are taught that they taught a mentality of victimhood. Um, and then backing up though, there's this what you talked about earlier. It's true that obviously different communities, different ethnic groups have different that society. And
Try to speak just a little slower because I think I'm having the same problem as before, cutting
sorry,
at the end.
how's this? Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna say I obviously one of the problems that the black community has is that the lack of fathers, because single fathers, when you have any community that has a high rate of single mothers without fathers present, you're gonna have a high rate of crime, and that's obviously what we see. Now, I think that it's not fair to just say to blame everything on the black community for not having better values for better families, because I think if you know the history of policies in the United States, especially democratic policies, they've been designed in many ways to undermine black communities by incentivizing single motherhood. If you look at statistics again, let's take Harlem in New York, for example. A black person in New York, in New York City, especially in Harlem, in the 1950s, had a much higher probability rate of being born into a family with two educated working parents, etc. And the black community wasn't so bad off in those days as people think. They think on a graph, there was slavery, and then since then they've just always been struggling, and this must be the best they've ever done. But in truth, they were, blacks are they have a lot of very competent, hardworking, intelligent people in general, and they were doing fine. But I do believe that the democratic policies like welfare policies specifically, that only giving out welfare to families that don't have a provider present, like a male present, incentivizes the women not to keep the men around, right? And so I could get into other things off the top of my head too, but I think that there's been a lot of bullshit that has undermined the community too. So at this point, judging them, we're so far down this rabbit hole, now, because like I said, if you study like social psychology and evolutionary psychology and all this stuff, you're gonna understand that like without fathers present, like a lot of this stuff is gonna be predictable. It's just predictable. So, I have a lot of different. I'm an amalgamation of different values. I'm a pretty classic liberal guy overall, though, and I just think that this isn't so much of left or right family. I'm very supportive of like fathers and nuclear families and stuff, because I just are political leaning. If you have a good father, that's going to make a hell of a difference most of the time in how you turn out as an adult. So, yeah, the black community is like.
But you're definitely right about those populist policies that have destroyed culturally United States the Black America, and have been working really bad culturally in Brazil. Not necessarily incentivizing the single mother families, but definitely on incentivizing people of some type of stagnation, of not want to do better, so you can depend on the government, depend on benefits. I recognize that as very important, and I like that you pointed out, because it was sounding that was just definitely just cultural and there was no political influence. And I do think the church, the same way that we had church incentivizing people to procreate, we had government doing that later when they had the power. And I just don't want to assume that they had the bad intention, because in Brazil I have been in the side where I would actually blame the democratic, they are not a democratic republic, but the democratic policies that incentivize single families and people to be poor and of the stagnation was the Labor Party in Brazil. And they did that for decades and definitely changed culturally what is the poor man worker in Brazil of 20, 30 years ago.
This is why I wish I knew more. I unfortunately don't know anything about the context of things in Brazil, but I know it's pretty complex. I can only speak of mostly American culture and Canadian culture, but it is, I see your point completely. On the other point that you raised about the lack of the anti-white stuff, like the left will, like the radical left will often claim that this is a white supremacist culture, but white people in general, I don't think we're even in the top 3 highest average income earners now for ethnic. So that argument also kind of pokes holes in the white supremacy thing, because we've obviously set up a society where we don't make the most money. So some communities have obviously gotten way higher above whites. They're at a different starting point.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually driven by racial, racial in like war as a racial, or like a whites trying to control blacks. I do think it's more about the the government power. I think at least in Brazil, what it seems to have happened is that the Labor Party came to government, got in the power, and in a financial good position, got in the power when the government was financially well, and managed to give money away in a way to incentivize. If you are a family poor enough to leave this much people under this much money, I will give you more. Just trying to summarize to not be so specific about the numbers, but they would say under a minimum salary, if you have this many people living under it, I will help you with extra. And this extra is like is a cheap change. Let's say it's not a proper way for you to live. So it's not that you actually can make many other kids, but for the population is a type of incentive. It's a motivation to make more kids. So in Brazil, what happened was like, yeah, poor families that could not already afford the many kids they had, making more kids to get more benefits from the government. For them, for the party, it is interesting, and they saw that later as like, let's give more benefits, because now we have more poor people that actually will be dependent on our benefits, and of course they are going to vote for us because they depend on that, and they are gonna now they're not just it's not just a couple, a poor couple with 2 kids, 3 kids. It's a poor couple with 10 kids, and those 10 kids, they are all voting for me in the future. So it is a factory of votes for the party that installs those things. They just don't, they cannot do less. They just see as doing more because that is what elects them. And for the nation and culturally, the population is terrible.
Uh, yeah, you're touching on a really good issue that is a problem in all Western nations. So I'm going to point quickly because I'm having a problem with my phone, so I might lose you at any
Yeah,
moment. But
yeah, no problem.
if you on the Freebird Media YouTube channel, there's a lot of footage of live streaming from um, the Roxham Road illegal border crossing area between New York and Quebec. And the RCMP has like a processing unit there, and for years now, it did finally get shut down due to this pandemic, like after like a month into it. So I'm not sure of the status now, but for a long time, like hundreds and hundreds of people were just being filtered through that spot per day, and it took this pandemic to get that spot shut down. Even though like the government knew all about it, they had literally processing people there all day long. And I talked to the RCMP Media Relations Department on the phone after being there with Facebook and stuff. So there's a lot of footage and interesting conversations with RCMP all on. But anyway, I think that a lot of reason that's allowed to continue is because there's probably about 60,000 illegal people a year get through that spot into Ontario, and all those people are. And I interviewed some of them live, and they were telling me they were coming for the social benefits. So if you keep adding all those people to the pot, and a lot of they're coming from places like the Middle East and Africa, right? They're like liberal votes because they're going to get in the system. They're going to vote liberal, so they're getting those social benefits that they're coming for. So that is definitely something that's going on in Canada, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's still all the time.
I think it is a long conversation. We definitely cannot just jump on that because we have to definitely, whenever we have a chance, address how much the illegal immigration is negative and harmful to the citizens and for the legal immigrants financially. When you talk about minimum wage, when you talk about the salaries, when you talk about the economic stagnation inside whatever place that suffers this type of mass immigration as the United States and Canada, I don't think talks much about it, but I can see the street population growing in scary levels, and again, yeah, in proportion, it's impressive recently in the last years.
True. Again, I mentioned Thomas Sowell earlier. He talks a lot about this specific subject. So anyone watching this, I really recommend YouTubing or checking out the work of Thomas Sowell. It's like an economist, and he's from Harlem. and he writes really good books on all of these specific subjects. So check out Thomas Sowell if you're watching this.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, well, I will let you go because I know it's pretty late over there too. And check out Freebird Media Canada, Alex, and me. We're gonna be doing some videos and talking about today things together. I think I lost him already. Thank you very much for people, for whoever came, showed up, and I'll try to upload this video. Yeah, that happened. It's okay. And thank you very much, everybody. Okay, see you all next video.